Hello everyone and welcome to Club Deck Corner here on Club at 22, the Rangers podcast. This week it is simple. Beale, should he stay or should he go now? I am Scott Carney and joining me to go through hell and to keep on going is Scott Gemmell. Scotia, how are you, mate?
That's a stupid question, isn't it? No, still not great. You know that I was saying to you guys, I'm not working at the moment, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I've not had the chance to speak to anyone about the game or not, so I don't know if I've just been stewing in my own thoughts over the last few days. So hopefully tonight can be a wee bit of therapy again, because that was a painful weekend.
It was painful to endure, mate. Yeah, I'm the same, mate. I do see the podcast as a wee bit of therapy, and I'll put a disclaimer in right at the start. For people expecting some positivity, you're probably not going to get it. I'm not going to lie. It's now just to say that we're recording on Tuesday. The game was 2 days ago, and I still don't feel really any real difference in the way that I felt on Sunday. So there is a lot to talk about, mate. Obviously, and unfortunately, it's been left to it. It's convenient that they two are unavailable, mate, isn't it, for a podcast like this? But we're going to have to kind of dissect what we've seen on Sunday. But they owe us. I think they owe us one for this, mate.
Probably. They're playing that wee card too often, aren't they?
Very much so, mate.
It's their own fault, because, like you say, it's one of these ones. Maybe after it, once we've vented a bit more on Sunday, it might make us feel a wee bit better. But I highly doubt it, to be honest.
Yeah, I like the thought of it, mate, but I do highly doubt it. I'm going to start playing my annual leave card, mate. I'm not doing that enough. I think I definitely need to do that from time to time and let you guys take over while I take a break. But no, before we do get into things, we took a rare jump in subscribers. So hello to everybody that's tuning in now for the first time for Club Deck Corner. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. It's been great to see so many. So many subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support the podcast to reach the next level, you can join the channel for as little as 99p a month. You can also buy the podcast a coffee via buymeacoffee.com. All the links for that are in the description for this podcast. You can see me, I'm trying to do delay tactics here before we actually have to go on and do this. But we shall. So Rangers 0, Celtic 1, mate. A game that's reared more questions than answered, and it's going to be a bit of a rabbit hole, I feel, that we're going to go down tonight. As I was saying to Scotia before we come on there, usually we send a brief agenda. I'm not talking in really great detail, just topics that we might cover while we do a pod. Tonight there was only one, and it was Beale, and that's pretty much all that I said to Scott. Scotia, the starting 11, I don't think there was any great surprise. I think the biggest surprise, and we could probably cross a wee bit of news with this as well, was the left-back position, where Borna is miraculously fit now for Croatia. You can read into that what you will. A lot of people are saying that he's not being professional. I think that's me being polite about it. But the starting 11 itself, mate, to me, there wasn't really a great shock.
No, I don't think so, looking at it, given the way that he has been playing like Danilo and Lammers from the bench quite recently. That there wasn't really any massive shocks in that. You would expect Jack to come back in for a game like that at the weekend. There's not much more you can do with the defence, because, like you say, obviously at that point, Yilmaz's just coming back from his injury and Borna supposedly injured. And then up top as well, I think we all expected Ruth to definitely start. You can't see much difference than a team that I would have went out and picked.
No, and again, Ruth starting on his own probably raises questions. Matondo starting as well even raises questions. I mentioned that Stowe Ali's point, that I very much doubt that Michael Beale at the start of this season thought that the first Old Firm game of the season he'd be lining up with Ruth and Matondo in the starting 11. But again, maybe that shows that the strikers haven't hit the ground running the way that Beale would like. I do believe that, I still say it, that Kemar Roofe, a fully fit Kemar Roofe's the best striker that we have at the club. And Matondo has probably deserved his right to get a start because of the way that he's played and the performances that he's brought to the team. He's been maybe one of only a small handful of positives that we've had, is that he seems to be finding some bit of form. But yeah, so in terms of lineup, I wasn't shocked. The Barisic one, read into that what you will. I'm not going to sit and go down that road because we've got enough to get into, to be honest. Obviously, we take the lead within seconds, mate. But obviously it's ruled offside, rightly so. And I think it's only, before we go any further, we'll stop at the disallowed goal. Now, depending on what side of the city that you fall on, mate, you'll have a different opinion on this. The way I look at it, I can't. In my opinion, from even the reaction that we've had from ex-refs, pros, ex-pros, whoever, some have said aye, some have said no. So, in my opinion, there's no clear and obvious error being made because there's so much that's up for speculation, for debate about the decision. There doesn't really seem to be a kind of set in stone. This is the decision. It has been kind of back and forth. Now, I'm not saying the goal would have won Rangers the game. Of course, it would have changed the complexion of the game. However, I feel Rangers were not rewarded the benefit of the doubt with the decision. And I do honestly believe, call me wearing a tinfoil hat or blue tinted glasses if you like, if this was the other way around and it was Celtic that had done this and Celtic had the goal chopped off or like the goal allow whatever way, I don't think the goal would have been chopped off. I think Celtic would have probably got that goal because of the witch hunt that would have followed it, their pressure that they put on referees and the media hype that goes all around about that. Now, as I say, I'm not saying we would have definitely won the game, mate, but there's no doubt you can't deny that goal would have changed the game and it would have changed the way Ibrox was feeling at the time. And by the way, now that you've had all this going through and back and seen it all, do you think it's a free kick or not?
No, my opinion's not changed on it. I've listened to an awful lot, like you say, listened to an awful lot of people's comments on it, and you're probably right that it will fall down along team lines in terms of do you think it's a foul or do you not? I personally don't think it is. I said to you boys after we done, just before we done the post-match reaction, and somebody there that it was very, very reminiscent of the foul or supposed foul that Morelos got against Borussia Dortmund when he went and played in Kent. It was very, very similar to that, and I still maintain that wasn't a free kick to Borussia Dortmund. Then it should have been a goal that stood for us, and I fully agree that it should have stood there at the weekend as well. I'm just perplexed, really, because, like you say, it's the clear and obvious error that you need to make to then get VAR involved. I don't know if it was a clear and obvious error because you do have this dubiety over people saying, maybe it isn't, maybe it's not. So for me, that doesn't really scream out clear and obvious error. But because when we'd obviously you'd mentioned the goal that get chopped offside straight away, so we started, that went in. You think, right, okay, you're starting okay, but then there was a couple of warning signs for me anyway. And like you say, the goal standing or not, I don't think would have changed the complexion of the game because there was warning signs prior to that where the midfield was just sitting too deep for me. There was a couple of times Suter tried to run out from the back, get caught. Celtic probably should have done better to capitalise on that before that the goal that we're speaking about there from Ruth get disallowed. But for me as well, it's the players' reactions, the Celtic player reactions. Get McGregor, who was the boy? Was it Lager? Michael or something, whatever the boy defender, centre half. You can see their reaction. They weren't really calling for it. Didn't seem to be anyone calling for it. On the Celtic side of things, obviously they did set up to then take the free kick. Why wouldn't you? But no, for me, it's probably a goal that still should have stood. But like you say, it probably doesn't change the complexion of the game. It's not where we were poor at it. There's other reasons why we didn't go out and win that game. It wasn't that decision.
Again, mate, I'll reiterate, there's no way I am saying that this goal is the reason for our demise on Sunday, but you can't just be remiss of it, I suppose. And there is bigger things to speak about, mate, and we will get into it, trust me. But I thought we would talk about the two talking points of that and the goal, and then we will get into the nitty gritty of things. I'm the same, mate. I don't think it's a foul, and again, I might be being biased or not. I don't really care if I am being, but I just don't see how. I just don't see how it's a foul. I think it should have been a goal that stood. But you're right. I think Kyogo was trying to be too clever. After I've watched the game back, he was trying to be clever with a shot, try to score with a wee kind of back heel flick instead of maybe just putting his boot through it. He'd have probably scored before that. So but again, it's one of those ones that whatever side of the city you fall on, you'll decide whether it was a goal or not, but I still believe it should have been a goal. The goal that they actually scored, mate, Kyogo, the defence is weak, very weak here. There is literally no pressure on the header from Goldson, absolutely none whatsoever. Watching it back, I've probably been overcritical as well. I think he takes too long to react to the fact that he's headed the ball, and he kind of almost admires his header, if that makes sense, for a brief second, which is enough time for Kyogo to have read the line, see that Shooter's playing him onside. The header comes back through, none of us react really, and he buries it and puts it away. This is this defence, mate. This is our defence. This is the reason that we are conceding stupid goals, is because, see, no matter what, mate, we've got a brain fart in us.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not even just the defence. I think you look at the header in and of itself that Goldson makes to clear it. Not a terrible clearance, but because we're the midfielder playing, the midfielder know better to go in and win that ball. You know, maybe Goldson should have been aware of that fact that the midfield were playing that bit deeper, that he's clear heading that into an area where none of our players are there to get it. And then, yeah, like you say, just caught ball watching. Suter was very poor for sitting watching it, and as soon as it sort of broke through to Kyogo, you just kind of knew it was going to go in, and you're sitting there half expecting, because you weren't fully expecting it, going like, oh, is that offside flag going to go up? But no, you watch it back. No, he's played well onside because of where Suter's playing.
Yeah, it's an absolute fair goal. It was one of those ones where I just thought to myself, he must be offside, or maybe I thought, please be offside. I don't know. It was maybe one of the two. But yeah, again, it's just a poor goal for us to concede, and it kind of shows the state of affairs of our backline just now. Don't get me wrong. I think at times Goldson did really well, but at other times he was extremely poor, and that's kind of a theme throughout the whole team. We're seeing good. Well, sometimes we see good bits, other times we see absolutely shocking bits, and there's no trend in when it's going to happen. It just happens. It can happen simultaneously almost. But as I say, but that goal again, I think it's poor defending, but it is a good finish. But it is still very much poor defending. Leads me on to the tactics, mate, or the lack of, whatever way you want to look at it. After the first kind of 10 minutes or so, is always a wee bit frantic at the start of an Old Firm game. We sat off Celtic, mate. We sat deep. We got very deep at points where we weren't pressing them really until they were maybe about 4 or 5 yards within our half before a player would go anywhere near them. Now, with us, if we'd have got things right on Sunday, we could have put real pressure onto Celtic. They were coming into that game in not very good form. They were slightly fragile, as they have been really since the start of the season, because of the uncertainty or the way that they're looking at Brendan Rodgers. But I can't understand the thought process behind Beale thinking the best thing for us to do is to sit off Celtic. All we did, mate, was hand them impetus in that game.
Yeah, it's baffling, but Beale's tactics really are starting to kind of worry me majorly. How he's playing, how he's setting up games, and then changing things. And then today, the midfield, or not today, sorry, Sunday there, the midfield were atrocious in that first half, all three of them. Raskin, Xhaka, and Cantwell, not really having any impact in the game. Sitting too deep, like I'd mentioned, just really poor. And I think that's the most disappointing thing, is that we knew that Celtic were there and we could get at them and put pressure on them rather than the other way around. And we went out and played that game like we were the away team. And there was no Celtic fan in that stadium. It was all Rangers fans there. There's no way we should be sitting off like that, because the game started off, the atmosphere was really good. Started the game, you see that big typo. All the fans are there. You got off to a perfect start, scoring. Yeah, it's offside, but you'd really expect Rangers to kick on from that. And it's kind of what you've expected from teams that Beale's been involved with at Rangers. It's good organisation, good off the ball and things like that. On Sunday there was none of that. It was so poor all over the pitch, really, from us. And it's the midfield's really worrying for me.
Yeah, I just say for the what winning that game would have done for this team and for Beale would have been brilliant. It would have been, they had such a positive effect. But instead we got this pathetic performance, mate. This sitting off performance, like almost looking like there's a lack of belief, almost looking like we've just decided that all we're going to do is not lose the game. it's unacceptable for me. You can't set up like that. And I believe that the players don't believe anymore, because my honest opinion is Beale's bought all these players and he's got absolutely no idea how to get the best out of them. I think he's a wee bit like a rabbit in headlights right now. And I think that is from the top, from Beale down into the team, it's resulting in these performances where it's just all, nobody wants to take control. Nobody wants to take a risk. Nobody wants to be brave. Everybody wants to play it safe because there is no belief. And the overall feeling around the squad is all we have to do is not get beat here. And I as all these things we've just mentioned, with them having a patchwork back four at times, or finishing the game with a patchwork back four anyway, the fact that they were coming off of a dropping points at St Johnstone at home, they've had all week to sit and think about that. The fact that there's still uncertainty around Brendan Rodgers, even though they'll all say differently now because he's won the first Old Firm game of the season, it's still there. It's not going away anytime soon. All of that, and we put up a performance like that, as Ryan says, mate, it's just red flags written over the top of it.
Yeah, it's no great, and it's something I'd said to you guys, and I don't know, I've not really heard much mentioning this in anything I've listened to, but the backroom staff at Rangers are a bit of concern for me as well. There doesn't seem to be, they don't inspire an awful lot of confidence in me, and I don't know if that's kind of getting translated with the players on the pitch as well. That there just doesn't seem to be anyone in the backroom staff alongside Michael Beale that's driving the club forward in that respect. It worries me. It's substitutions. I know we'll come on to them again, but it's the substitutions that you stick your money on when he's going to make substitutions and the types of subs that he's making. Yeah, it's just I'm really struggling to find any positives from the weekend there.
Yeah, and even after the disallowed goal, I think even before then, it looked like we had settled for a draw, and a draw suited Celtic down to the ground. Do you know what I mean? They would have loved to get out of there with a point. They would have been delighted with that. Even their fans, I don't think, would have been upset about that based on the way that they were feeling before the game. But what we witnessed is, it's far from what we should be doing. And I think ultimately, I just feel like there is just a lack of belief running through the squad. There's a lack of leadership. There's a lack of direction, and the problems are just coming to the front right now. And I don't like to get myself to the point where I'm not try to pick out positives. And even if I try to pick out positives from Saturday, for Sunday? What am I looking at? I'm not looking at anything. There's nothing there. And I think that's where the biggest frustration of all of it comes, mate. I take no pleasure in doubting the Rangers manager, but as a fan of the appointment of Beale, as I was, mate, I just don't have anything to back his corner with right now. And that's worrying. It's worrying at this stage of the season. Really, mate, this season so far, we haven't played good football. We've not played attractive football. The tactics are baffling. We are playing long balls. We have a squad that every player is now considered fit. Anyway, and we are determined to be saying that we have a fit squad. But whatever Beale's trying to do, my gut after Sunday said it's over for him, mate. And it's a movie that we have seen before. I think it all came out, mate, when you're right, as you mentioned, the subs, mate, when Kamaru got substituted. I've never heard that at Ibrox before in my life. I've never heard booing like that. And I don't think it was, I heard this in Heart and Hand, David Edgar mentioned it, and he's probably right. I don't think it was booing Roof as such. At first I thought it was booing not booing Roof, but the decision to take him off. It was booing Beale for that, obviously. But it was more, we didn't know what he was trying to do, and all he did there was light a fire, and we just decided we just poured petrol on it by going, yeah, we'll join you in this because we don't know what you're doing either.
See, this one for me was a bit of a strange one because Roof's the second start in about 18 months. So yeah. He's not ready to play 90 minutes of football. He wasn't great at the weekend there either, Roof. He scores, but apart from that, he wasn't great. Dessers, for me, was probably offering a bit more, linking up well. So the reaction to it confused me slightly, but I can understand it because people had probably been pinning an awful lot of their hopes on Roof doing well. But when you sit back and look at it, like I say, I wasn't expecting him to play a full 90 minutes of football, so he would have been one of the first attacking substitutions you would make unless someone's having an absolute horror show. So yeah, but I'm not really sure because it's one of those ones for me. You've got Danilo there sitting on the bench, £6 million. You're kind of marquee summer signing, if you want to say. And Beale doesn't look like he knows how to fit him into the team, how to play him in that team with Dessers, because you've seen Dessers again linking up well to provide 2 assists there at the weekend. Obviously, both disallowed, but he's got that in him and playing alongside with Danilo there more regularly from the start. We've seen it at the very start of the season, and then it wasn't working. So it's like he's almost completely scrapped it. It's baffling at times, to be honest. And I struggle to see how he gets anything out of this team because he's lost the support. I think as we record this, there's potentially meant to be a protest over at Ibrox as we're recording this.
I heard. Yeah, seen that.
I think he's lost an awful lot of the support because this season in particular, what we played decent for half of a half against Servette, and then at home to PSV, there were moments there, but apart from that, it's been pretty poor, and there's not really been much that we can turn around and go like, oh no, I see what he's trying to do there. At the moment, it's just like he's trying to, like you mentioned at the weekend, he's just throwing stuff at a board to try to see if it'll stick.
Well, I think I also I read somewhere that we've had 9 games and we've had 9 games and 9 different starting 11s. We haven't started the same team once, right. Which again, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure I read it on Twitter. It could be wrong, but again, it can't be far wrong. It can't be far wrong from that. It must be pretty close to that. Which again is desperation stuff. That he doesn't know he doesn't know he's starting 11. He doesn't know his strongest squad, and I just generally believe that he doesn't know how to get the best out of the players that he signed. He signed them for a system that nobody understands. I mean, even tacticians, some guys I follow on social media and stuff that are very good, are kind of baffled by what he's attempting to do because it doesn't make any sense. And I want him to go full Mike Bassett England manager, mate, and just go, England are playing 4-4-2, because at that point I would understand what he's trying to do, but he doesn't. You know what I mean? He's almost too clever about stuff. And as you say, we are a bit at the point where I'm going, I never want a Rangers manager to lose his job because it can be counterproductive at times, and it's not the way I usually look at things, but for a guy, as I say, that I was such a fan of the appointment. Yeah, I've got, if I was to sit down in a room with him and say to him, I'm like, you're giving me nothing to be able to back you up with. I can't really sit here and pretend that everything's okay or be a wee bit happy clappy and say he deserves a wee bit of time. He's had 10 months. Towards the end of last season, we played better football, right? We did. He came in, he steadied the ship to a certain extent. He made us consistent in games that we were losing. We were winning games that we should win, which is the reason that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst lost his job, because we weren't doing that. But came to me today, mate. See, last year, there was zero pressure on him. Absolutely zero. There was nothing that he really had to do. It was a case of everything really from now on in is a bit of a bonus. No matter what happens, he was always going to get a free pass. From day one, from pretty much the start, mate, from pre-season as well. Everybody knows we can gloss over pre-season results and whatever else, but even during pre-season, mate, there was enough doubt there for enough of us to go, there's nothing here. I don't know what we're building or what we're trying to build. And the feel-good factor, mate, that we had with bringing all these new signings in and the way that it was all happening, some of the players we've been linked with and we ended up getting over the line, we're all very excited about it. That's all gone. The feel-good factor is completely gone. And ultimately, mate, that's because the pressure of him being again, in my opinion, the pressure of him being the guy in charge in the dugout has got to him. I don't think he can do the job anymore. I agree with you. I think there's too many fans now that are too far gone, and I don't think there's any recovering from that. You can pick out whatever I just ranted for about 3 or 4 minutes there, mate.
You'd say there that there wasn't any pressure on him last season, which is true to an extent, and that's what I'm not going to say. But the times that pressure was on him, the games against Celtic that mattered, he failed in them as well last year.
He's not won a big game, yeah, exactly.
spectacularly so. And in the case of the League Cup final, there he got completely wrong there. So when the pressure has come along, he's wilted at it, and I don't know if it's probably a combination of Beale, and it's something that we've said about many, particularly the older guard in this team. When the pressure comes to some of the players in this team, they don't seem to be able to cope with it. Some of them have only managed it once in five or so years' time, 6 years in some people's cases. It's a worry, and that's what I was meaning about the backroom staff as well. For me, that's a bit of a concern. I don't see any confidence that the players take from the backroom staff that we've got. They all seem to be very, very quiet compared to maybe previous backroom staff teams we've had more recently. One that Beale was a part of. It's worrying. You'll probably come on to it, but we've got like 4 league games once we get back from this international break before the next international break. And if he doesn't win all 4 of them, if he's not gone by that time already, then he'll be gone in the next international break. But yeah, we'll probably go on to that.
We'll come to that, mate, for sure. We'll definitely come to that. Look, and again, I know this podcast will be a wee bit all over the place, but I am using it as a counselling session. I'm trying to get everything that's been piped up into me over the last couple of days to kind of sit and try and get it off my chest, and trying to justify as well why my opinion is what it is, because I'm never usually one like that. Generally I'm not. People that have watched us for long enough will know I always try and be glass half full. I always will, but now I'm at the point where I can't really see how he is going to recover from it. Scotia, is Beale making players worse? And by that, I mean, we are shoehorning Cantwell into a team to play deep. He's our best number 10, mate, by a long distance, long distance. Yeah, he's covering for Tavernier on Sunday. It is, and as you say, Ryan Jack and Raskin were hopeless on Sunday as well. But is he making players worse with this lack of, I don't know, style of play, identity, whatever term you want to use for it?
Yeah, it certainly feels that way, because I mean, I think how many positions has he actually tried to play Cantwell in this season? And yeah,
four, I think.
Four different positions. Yeah, for me as well, Raskin. You mentioned him. I think Raskin's been pretty poor in the first half of an awful lot of matches recently. He's got better in some of the games. He's got an awful lot better in the second half, but he's started the games off pretty slowly and poorly, which I wasn't expecting to see this season. I've said to you as well, Goldson, for me, I don't know if it's him just coming back from injury. I don't know. There's something just a wee bit slightly concerning for me about Goldson at the moment.
Yeah, agreed.
Summed up a bit at the weekend there again, because he's doing something like Goldson's doing this where he'll have a pretty poor game and then he'll have a good game, poor game, and it's, for me, I'm just worried that that's not going to level out to be consistently good. It's going to level.
On Sunday, he had a poor game and a good game in the same game.
Right, I know what you mean by that. But yeah, it's like, I can't. Who's the only player that you can look at and go, yep, you've improved under Beale so far? Matondo. Yeah, it's worrying.
What?
Yeah, it's worrying.
I know.
Because the problem as well is with like players like Tav and Goldson, they're getting older and older, so they're naturally going to lose a wee bit anyway. You would expect they're not going to be able to do the job that we were watching them do 3 seasons ago. But you'd like to then think that players can adapt to that. We've seen it plenty of times from older players. They realise where they're getting at a decent, good manager. Or, no, you do this, sweet, do well. I'm not seeing anything. And yes, people might say it's a wee bit knee-jerk reaction stuff, but like I say, there's been about 45, 60 minutes of football this season that I've actually enjoyed. It's been worryingly poor for the vast majority of it. And yes, you know what it's like. A win usually glosses over things like that. And the weekend there, I think just people might say we're overreacting, but I don't think we are. I think it's like just a culmination of things. And Beale is kind of ran out of time for me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, Beale said himself, mate, it was a huge game for him, and he failed. And he's miserably failed. It's not even like you've miserably failed against probably the worst Celtic team that we'll play this season due to injuries. And obviously them having a new manager, I think they're just going to bring players back and probably get stronger. And as you mentioned, mate, he's not won a big game. That's a fact. That is an absolute fact. You cannot argue with that. So the negatives now, the against are way outweighing the flaws. And yeah, as I say, I can only really see now that it ends one way. And I say I take no pleasure in doubting the Rangers manager, but as a fan of the appointment, I just have nothing. I have nothing to go on. At full time, mate, right? That reaction, I've been going to Ibrox now 25 plus years. I've been going to Ibrox. I have never heard it like that before. And I'm going back Pedro times as well, mate, where it was bad. But that was some of the comments I was hearing from fans. I think now, mate, I think the vast majority of fans and most of the people that I've spoke to, even on this channel, on the site and that as well, the majority of them have said it's time for him to go. Now, I'll caveat all that with the saying that the board are not acting just now. As far as we're aware, there is nothing coming from the club to say that there's even a conversation around him being moved. I know Kevin Muscat's name's been flung about Twitter like dirty washing today, but again, it's all speculation. There's nothing in it at all as far as I'm concerned. But Scotia, with that reaction at full time, and the ludicrous decision for them to decide to do a lap of honour. See, whoever's decision that was, I'd fine them a week's wages. That was a disaster call. You should never have done that, walking about clapping the fans. Don't you dare. Don't you dare clap the fans for our support when you do not deserve it. You really don't deserve it. But with the fans, the fans being this far gone, I would say, what, circa 85% of the fans base plucking a number out there, and it's just based on people I speak to. To me, mate, there's no way back. You can kick the can down the street, mate. You're still going to need to go get it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hang about. As soon as the final whistle went, I was like up the stairs and waiting in the concourse for you. So I didn't even see that. I don't think that wouldn't have made me happy. I've heard Ibrox booing the team at the full-time whistle before, but like you say, that one was a bit different. And I think the biggest reason for it is we all knew that game there was there for winning at the weekend there, and that we could go into the international break, sit on top of the league, and instead we're not. And we know that we had an excellent chance to do that there, and I think we were all just so disappointed that the team hasn't been able to manage to come up with the goods on Sunday there, because would it have papered over the cracks if we'd got a bit? Probably. Possibly, but then it buys them a wee bit more time as well to get work with the team, because there's not a huge amount away on international duty over the next week or two. But it's just, I think that was the main frustration, that we all knew that it was there to be won. We could go in top of the league, and now we're not. And this is sort of a concern for me as well, is because we'll be playing Europa League Thursday nights, we will now be playing catch up to Celtic in terms of, I think the first game back against St Johnstone, I think we play first because we are the early kick-off on the Saturday. But after that, we'll be playing on the Sunday more often than not because of fixtures getting moved. And we've seen how that's played out previously in the past, that it just gives them the motivation to go out and keep that gap there, which is a bit of a worry for me. And it's something I didn't really bring up when we were discussing going out to the PSV, but that was a concern I had, that we would end up being, playing catch up for the majority of the season.
Yeah, and we already are playing catch up, mate, because it's 4 games gone and we're 4 points behind. It's as simple as that. No matter what you look at it, it's a terrible start by anybody's standards as a Rangers manager. Now, as I say, I'm not a knee-jerk reactionary type of guy. I'm generally not, but I would put forward to anyone to put an argument forward for him to stay in the job. And if the only argument is, we're going to end up like Chelsea, I'm sorry, that's not a good enough excuse. We need to think of the club first. We need to think about the future of the club. Do we want to get to Christmas or get to Halloween, even, and the league's already gone and it's already too late and we need to do it? I believe that the best thing for him to do now is to leave, because I don't see how he recovers from it. I've not seen anything to make me think that, yes, you're the man, you're the guy that's going to lead us to success. Ultimately, these things happen in football. And as I say, I was one of the biggest cheerleaders for him getting appointed. But now I'm at the point where I'm going, nah, you've not got anything. You've not got anything there. And by God, did he look like a guy that was under pressure on Sunday from the pictures that I've seen? Obviously, I sit behind him in the club deck, so I don't really get to see the front of him, but the pictures I've seen, he doesn't look like he's enjoying himself, that is for absolute sure. What now, Scotia? The club, I say I don't believe the club are going to do anything. I think they're probably hoping that everything goes quiet over the next couple of weeks and this kind of disappears. But ultimately, I think we're probably going to need to stick with what we have just now. Now, I get that a board's meant to take emotion out of stuff, look at things logically, and yada yada, not make knee-jerk reactions as such. Be more, what's the word? Put far more thought into making decisions than what a layman's fan would do. But I don't think they can ignore the noise. I honestly don't. I don't think they can ignore the noise. What now for you, mate? Do you think the club will? Do you think the club won't? Do you think that we've got, well, as you mentioned, mate, we've got 4 games coming up in the league and Europa League to come, which is terrifying in itself. We are, do we just wait till the St Johnstone game? If we drop points and then do it then? Should we do it now? Because the fact that we've got a 2-week window here where we could maybe do something and get somebody in. What's your thoughts on the future, mate?
You know, I'm probably a bit like you in terms of I don't really want to. I don't like to see people lose their job for these results. I'd want him to succeed, and I can understand some people's arguments that he's not had an awful lot of time with the new squad for him to get it. But the problem is, I found myself doing this with Gio, that I hung on to Gio an awful lot longer because there was more that I could turn around to and say to Ryan, no, look, he does this. Whereas I get where Ryan's coming from.
I love how he says just Ryan. I love that.
No, and I could say no, but I can see Gio can point to this. I can point to certain results, point to European performances that you can see somewhere where it's going. Whereas this one recently, and I think kind of been all of us have been saying it in a roundabout way on the pod since pretty much the end of pre-season, is that there's getting less and less that we can turn around and go, no, I've got confidence to do that. One of my worries, and I've mentioned this to you, is who do we get in if we were to change it? That's, I know Ali keeps on saying it's not a decision for us to make, but if I'm going to sit here and say, no, I want the manager replaced, I need to have I don't know who I would put forward.
Yeah, but do you though? I'll do you though, right? Because even the Beale appointment, we didn't have a say in it. Like, you can say who you wanted to manage your squad, your team. That's ultimately, it's not down to us. So you have to take it as kind of face value. I get what Ali's saying, that I do understand. I also understand that people go, oh, who are you going to get then? Well, I don't know. I really don't know. But ultimately, what we're seeing right now, in my opinion, isn't working. So if something's not working, you need to fix it.
Yeah, there's another one as well. There's another thing that the board are probably going to be spending an awful lot of this wee break deciding on, and that's director of football, Kenny, appointment role type thing. You know, that's going to be something that I think that's probably what they're doing now. They're considering the director of football thing. How do we move forward? Because if we turn around and sack Beale, then are we going to bring just a manager in, or are we going to do the director of football and a manager in, or do they look at it now and go, like, listen, we need someone in to help you out a wee bit in that role? Is that maybe something the club are considering? Because it's something that we kind of spoke about during the summer there, and an awful lot of people were fairly happy that we didn't go down that route again. I know I was probably more in the camp that I would like to have a director of football in, but see how Beale seemed to be going well about his business in terms of things. We're now four games into the season, and that there's question marks starting to get asked about that now.
But I think that's a fair point, mate, because if you do look at the signings that we have made, which, again, I'm not being a hypocrite, some of the signings that we made I was very excited about, but the system, or the lack of, and the lack of direction within what Beale's trying to implement, and the fact that he seems to have bought a bunch of players that can't play together or can't play in the system that he's trying to attempt to play, that's worrying, and that's where the director of football's in between that and the decisions being made. I think you're probably right. I think the club will probably be weighing up the options now of being able to get a director of football in. maybe before they get a manager in. As I say, I'm not really sure, but it's a very good point, mate. I was all for continuing on without one, but if this is what it's going to result in, then we probably do need one. As I say, I want to be wrong about Beale, by the way. Honestly, I don't want anybody to think that this is a witch hunt for him, because it very much isn't. I want to be wrong because I wanted Michael Beale to be a success. But we're at the point now where maybe I was too, as I say, blue tinted glasses about it all, thinking he was the tactician that was coming back and we were going to play some of the best football that we'd seen when we had Steven Gerrard in charge. We were going to see some good football. But Scotia, I'm not going to lie, see the team as a whole, we don't look drilled, mate. We don't look like we communicate very well. So it's not a case of like I'm picking holes in just certain areas of it. The team as a whole, mate, just don't look joined. They don't look like they're all singing off the same hymn sheet, if that makes sense. And I believe that some of the passing displays and that they would seen on Saturday, we couldn't make 3, 4, 5 yard passes. We couldn't get the ball to each other. It was like a hot potato, and we just decided that our Celtic seemed to be the magnet for the ball, and we would just like to pass it back to them. As well, added on to that as well, we're resulting to long balls, mate. It's like a default position now that we try to just play the big diagonal. Again, mate, it's just all results back to I don't know what we're actually trying to do.
Yeah, there's these wee worrying signs. It's maybe not particularly. I don't know if did it happen much on Sunday there. I think it maybe happened once, but I've noticed it in a few games now where there's been visibly seen some arguments on the pitch between our players.
Yeah. I seen Kemar Roof. Sorry, I seen Kemar Roof at one point actually go over to Beale, and it was quite a heated discussion that they were having. Roof was very animated, and I was like, there's just warning signs all over it, mate. There's something wrong within the team.
Yeah, I've noticed it a few times now, particularly with Tav and Cantwell. At times, both kind of having a go at each other. It's one of the things that Ryan always says: how slow is this Rangers team? And it's like they're wanting to do things the way they've always done it rather than change it up. There are warning signs all over the place really at the moment, and it's unfortunately the situation we find ourselves in at the moment.
It is, and we are what, a drop points away to St Johnstone, away from it all being over anyway. So that's why again I just resort, and I know that's looking into the future and trying to predict what's going to happen, but again, put forward a case, anybody. I'm open to listening to it about why we believe that Beale was the man that's going to change this round. Because ultimately, I don't see it happening, unfortunately. Scotia, I'm not going to keep you all night, mate, because I probably need to go over lie down in a dark room after this, mate. I'm not going to, probably not lying there, mate. For this thankless task, mate. But you're always a good guy to have on, because me and Ali would have just ranted at each other, I think. But whereas me and you can have a more conversation than just shouting things randomly that me and Ali tend to do. So Scotia for tonight, mate.
That's what the viewers want to see, though, isn't it? That's what the viewers want to see.
Yeah, probably just me and Ali having a screaming match with each other about stuff. Yeah, but I think we're all pretty much on the same boat now, and it's the first time in a while, I think, even as a podcast, mate. We always tend to disagree. I know everybody says that we always agree with each other, but to a certain extent we do. But this one's unanimous, mate, across the board for all four of us. It's very rare that happens.
No, there's always usually a wee point that you can make, but I think we're all got to the stage where we've seen this movie too many times before, and we kind of know where it's leading to if nothing does change.
Very much so. Scotia, thank you so much for tonight, mate.
Aye, cheers. I would say it was enjoyable, but that's a slight lie. It was, aye, it needs to be done. Cheers.
It's always good to be able to sit and have a chat with you, mate. I'm not going to lie. It's always good to be able to sit and talk about Rangers with my pal. But it's it's a situation that I didn't really see ourselves in at this stage in the season. And yeah, you can agree with us or disagree with us. As I say, we're allowed opinions. We're Rangers fans. We're allowed to have different opinions. But very much for, I would say, speaking on all four of us that do the podcast, that we believe enough is enough, and the change is going to happen inevitably. So it should just happen now. So yes, if you've made it to the end of this podcast, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. We are hoping to be more positive going forward, and we will be. Look, we will be. We'll pick ourselves back up, and I know it's hard just now to see the wood for the trees, but I've got to always say how I feel, and I've always got to be honest on this podcast, or else I can't really give myself any sort of credibility. So it is just the way that we feel. It is the way that we feel. We'll be back on Friday with Club Live. We won't be away over the international break. We'll be definitely back on Friday with Club Live. So until then, if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, that would be very much appreciated. We're getting very close to 5,000 now, which is absolutely amazing. And we will be back on Friday. So enjoy the rest of your week if you can. Please leave your comments and let us know what you think of our rambling to each other tonight. It would be very much appreciated. And I'll speak to you on Friday. We are Club at 22, the Rangers podcast. Cheers, everybody.